Doesn't seem to be doing much there at all. It's really surprising. I would have thought with something like this, it would be very keen to start playing with traction control. Nice, nice, nice. G'day, I'm Paul, the Lexus GX. It is finally here. We had the chance to sample this in the States at the international launch. It is finally here in Australia, and we're going to put it through its paces. We're going to figure out whether this is an SUV you should buy. This is the Overtrail version, so it's basically the off-road focused one. It's priced at a little over 120 grand. You can go more expensive or less expensive, but in my opinion, this is the coolest looking one with all terrains and just that sort of off-road vibe to it. Now, if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, we're going to do a bit of light off-roading and then do all the regular stuff that we do. Your time codes are up on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below to skip ahead. Now, it is a bit of a wet one today, so I'm going to shiver through this for your benefit. Let's talk about the design and the colors. You can pay over $4,000 for the two-tone paint colors, which is insanely expensive. Even the metallic colors are a little under 2 grand. Now, given this is on the same platform as Land Cruiser and soon to be Prado as well, I hope that doesn't mean Prado optional colors are going to be 2 grand as well. So maybe they have a different paint process. I don't know, just seems a little bit rich to me. Full LED headlights over here with an LED indicator. This thing is just bold looking. It's got that sort of very boxy vibe to it, and while the GX was sold in the States for quite some time, even available as a V8 over there as well, it's never been available here in Australia. So it is cool to see that this model has finally arrived, and it kind of propels Lexus in Australia into that sort of premium vibe. You've got the Prado, which will be available with effectively a carryover diesel engine and nothing else at this stage, whereas this gives you that higher output option and kind of doesn't paint you as a sort of typical Land Cruiser 300 series buyer, if you know what I mean, with the diesel as well. So that is where you land with this big grille down the front here with Lexus badge there. Sort of matte black finish on that one. This white color is free of charge. You've got headlight washers there, great for off-roading. That can blast off debris if the car does get dirty. Then around the side here, you've got a set of all-terrain tyres, 18-inch alloy wheels. These are a nice and chunky all-terrain tyre. I'm curious to see how this stops, because we've had issues before with all-terrain tyres on big SUVs and stopping distances in the wet. So we will see how it goes, because today it is very wet and very cold. Wheel arch cladding there. Beneath the skin, you've got adaptive variable suspension, so adaptive damping. You've also got eKDSS, which is the latest version of the KDSS system. So we'll be able to test that on our off-road course and see how much articulation that gets us when those sway bars are effectively disconnected. You've got piano black on the wing mirrors there with the camera down the bottom. Plastic side steps, a little bit cheap in my opinion, but you know, you'll be replacing those if you want to do some proper sort of off-roading. Privacy glass there, you've got roof rails up the top. Come around to the back with me. Love this back section. So you've got this LED bar that runs all the way along the back there, individual Lexus lettering, GX 550, you have a 3.5 ton braked towing capacity. Love this as well. So you've got the ability to open 2 sections of that boot. So they really have thought about versatility here. And it is a tall vehicle. Have a look at this. I'm about 185 centimeters tall, and you can see here that that is quite a sort of big thing. So love the look of this. Now let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Styling is entirely subjective. While I think this looks fantastic, you might think it looks not very fantastic. So let me know what you reckon in the comments section. Do you like the pricing as well? Because in my opinion, it is pretty well priced. I thought this was going to be way more expensive. So you're getting that sort of Lexus service without the enormous price tag. Okay, so we are inside the GX. We'll start off with the keys. You've got lock, unlock, boot, panic, Lexus logo on the back. It is a proximity sensing key, so you leave that in your pocket. Big stop start button up the top here. So this interior, it looks really cool. It looks very un-Lexus-like. It's all quite like the outside, actually. It's like a solid plank. You've got all this sort of straight stuff around the place. There's not many curves. It is just very sort of boxy looking, and I love the look of it. One of my favorite features that Lexus has introduced is this screen behind the controls as well. So it looks like it's a separate screen, but it'll just be formed part of this 14-inch display. But depending on what function you have, it like shows you temperatures or fan speeds. I think it's a really cool setup. So yeah, one thing that I am curious about, we did a video a little while back introducing the new Prado, and this bit here confused me because I thought that was a wireless phone charger. It's not, because the wireless phone charger is here, but it's a spot for the 12 volts outlet, but it's got this weird sort of blank on it. I don't know whether this is meant to be something in the future or what exactly the purpose of that is, but that is quite an odd one. Only downside, I think, to this interior from a design point is just the lack of colour. It is just very dark. There is sort of this wood grainy stuff, and there is a green highlight down here and on the seats, but I reckon it could have just a little bit more pizzazz, but that's about it. In terms of your touch points, so nice and soft there, soft on the door as well. How soft are they? Got our gyrometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before, there's a link in the description below. Now, build quality. Do our shake test. That all feels really nice and solid. A little bit loose there, but that's what the door slam sounds like. Does it have soft close? No. Boo. Now, let's talk about infotainment, probably centerpiece to this cabin, and it's what kind of makes this feel a whole lot nicer than older Lexus vehicles did. Basically, big 14-inch display, so all there in front of you. This is the latest version of the Lexus infotainment system. So it's connected to the internet, it's got connected services. You've got a panic button up the top here as well, helps you call someone in the event of an accident or emergency. Inbuilt satellite navigation, then you basically have shortcuts down the bottom here for climate, and then you have menus that pop up to frequently used functions as you sort of flick through there. So you can see there it's all sort of pretty straightforward. In addition to that inbuilt satellite navigation, you have AM, FM, DAB, digital radio. This comes with a 10-speaker sound system. It's a Panasonic sound system. If you do opt for the high-end model, that comes with a 21-speaker Mark Levinson sound system. This one's still pretty good, but you know, you can pump out more tunes if you do want. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, both wireless. This is what Apple CarPlay looks like. So nice full screen integration, very zippy and easy to use. And this is Android Auto, so full screen as well. Nice and snappy there too, so win-win. You do have a screen ahead of the driver as well, so this gives you litany of different functions there to choose from, including some off-road displays, on-road displays, you know, you name it, you can flick between the screen there, so it's a pretty decent setup. And then this little guy down here is the driver monitor as well, keeping an eye on things. On the safety front, you have autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. You have an auto-dimming rear vision mirror, but I would love to see a digital rear view mirror. Not an issue here in the 5 seat, but in the 7 seat, it would definitely be a handy addition. Blind spot monitoring built into the wing mirror. You've got radar cruise control and a lane departure or a lane centering assistant, which we'll test later on. Front and rear parking sensors and a 360 camera. I'm going to flick the car on so we can see what that looks like. There it is there. Visibility is great. So that's a very sharp image out the back there. You've also got the ability to go widescreen if you want. And then I think that's a washer. Yeah, look at that. Very cool. And this is what the horn sounds like. Now moving on to practicality, and we'll start off with your connectivity. So you've got 2 USB-C ports up the top here. You have the 12-volt outlet hidden behind that little sort of cubbyhole door style thing there. In terms of charging your phone, you've got a wireless phone charger down here. There's one of them, and it's kind of, yeah, not the most practical location in the world, but it's there, which is the main thing. On storage, you've got 2 cup holders here as well with teeth built in. Look at this, you have a fridge in the center here. So while the fridge is cool, the problem is that it's tiny and it takes up a lot of room where you could actually have a reasonably sized glove box, because outside of this, you really don't have much storage here at all, which is quite surprising when you look at the size of the vehicle. So I think they probably could have done a little bit better here with the packaging and storage, but you know, it is what it is. In terms of other storage, you've got door pockets that are pretty decently sized. You've got glove box down here that, I mean, you don't have any space in once you have the manual in there. A bit of storage there as well. No sunglasses holder either. So yeah, look, I think storage could be just a little bit better there. On the comfort front, these seats, pretty comfortable. Perforated there for heating and cooling as well. And you can go forwards, backwards. Your backrest can go forwards and backwards. You've got lumbar support there as well, along with that little sort of green suede stuff I mentioned earlier. Dual zone automatic climate control with heated and cooled seats. You also have a particulate filter here as well. So that's not a bad setup. Steering offers both tilt and reach adjustment. It's fully electric. You also have memory for the seat as well. We'll do a quick reach test here. That's all sort of pretty easy to reach while you're driving. Okay, second row, what is it like? A little more cramped than I thought it was going to be. So knee room is okay, but not amazing. I've got my seat pretty far back. Toe room is reasonable, headroom reasonable as well. I don't know, it just feels a little bit sort of tight back here, especially with this giant sort of center lump here as well. I think you'd be hard pressed to actually fit 3 adults across here, which is a little bit surprising. Map pockets in the back here. You have a third zone of climate control there, 2 USB-C charging outlets. You've got a center armrest here with 2 cup holders. This second row doesn't slide forwards and backwards, which you find in a lot of vehicles like this. It gives you more space in the third row. While this doesn't have a third row, it is one of the things that is missing from this platform, but that you will find on many other platforms. So it is a little bit disappointing that I don't have that sort of ability to operate the seats like that here. You've got ISOFIX points, 2 of those on the outboard seats and 3 top tether points as well. And window, does it go up and down? Look at that, it goes all the way down. Obviously goes up and down, and it's auto up and down. Forgot to mention as well that air vents are located here in the roof. Now let's talk cargo. So I mentioned before, you've got 2 options of getting in. You can open the glass there, or you can open the powered tailgate. Could be a little bit faster, but anyway. Also could be a slight bit taller, but it is what it is. So this is what it looks like with our bag in there. So you can see it's got plenty of room. So being on the same platform as a Land Cruiser Prado and a bigger Land Cruiser as well, you actually have reasonable amounts of storage. You don't get the option of 7 seats here for the Overtrail version. It is 5-seat only. You've got a little bit of storage under here as well for your odds and ends, and then a power outlet off to the side here for 100 watts. So not exactly groundbreaking amounts of power, but it is interesting. You can see here that it's all ready for 7 seats. You've got cup holders and USB ports, but there are no sort of 7 seats there. Now you can expand the space. The only downside is that the second row doesn't slide forwards and backwards like the other vehicles on this platform, so you only have the option to tumble it. And I'll show you a clever feature they've put in there. So when you do move it out of the way like that, you can load extra stuff in here by dropping both of those seats, but it's not ideal because that moves around heaps, and if you have stuff in there, every time you accelerate it'll fall, and brake it'll whack your seat. But they do actually have quite a clever mechanism here, so it's a little strap that you can then hook onto the front section there to hold this in place, and it means that it's not going to move around too much. So a little bit of extra versatility in terms of loading things, but like you'll find with the Land Cruiser, you can't move the second row forwards and backwards. It only tumbles like this. Now, are you in the market for a new SUV? Well, have I got a deal for you? Well, actually, I have a page full of them. All you need to do is go to Google, type in "Help Me CarExpert," or use the QR code on the screen. It's going to take you to the CarExpert website. We're a big company. It's like over 60 full-time employees. Very impressive. We also have a page on the site with all of the deals going in Australia this month to help you figure out which car you need to pick. We can then even put you in touch with one of our friendly dealers who might even be able to get you a better deal as well. So go to Google, type in "Help Me CarExpert," or whip your phone out, scan the QR code, and away you go. Okay, we have just hit the road in the Lexus GX, and this feels exactly how I remembered it at the international launch. The ride is super soft. So we are sitting on the chunkier all-terrain tires here, but the thing that they've really tried to tune in here is just that level of comfort. And look, they have adaptive damping, so that definitely helps, but there's also about 10,000 driving modes. You can see here as I flick through this, you have so many to pick from that, I don't know, they all, normal and comfort kind of feel the same, but then you've got Sport S, Sport S Plus, there's just like thousands to pick from. But good part is that it actually does feel nice and smooth. Now, what is under the bonnet here? And it is a little bit complicated, this whole package, because this platform, this is on the TNGA platform, and this is actually shared between the 300 series Land Cruiser, the Lexus LX, the new Prado, stuff like the Tundra as well, this vehicle obviously. So it is interesting that they've been able to engineer so many different engines here, and it's part of the reason you're never going to really see a V6 petrol in a Prado, because it would cannibalize the sales of this vehicle. And likewise, you won't see this engine in the 300 series because it would cannibalize sales of 300 series. So anyway, so that is kind of the lay of the land. So this is a 3.4 litre turbocharged petrol V6. So great engine in the Lexus LX. That is obviously a bigger vehicle than this, but in this package here where it is slightly smaller, it just feels like the right fit. Nice and nippy, very nice and quick, 10-speed automatic transmission that it's mated to. So if you do sort of sink the boot in, really pins you nicely into the seat. It has a lot of torque. And we're talking about 260 kilowatts of power and 650 Newton meters of torque. So it's a big old healthy slab, and everywhere you are in the rev band, it doesn't have to dive back through gears to feel it. It just really picks up and moves. It's quite responsive and eager to please, which is great news. So I drive a Ranger Raptor, turbocharged V6, kind of similar to this in weight as well, and it drinks. It loves a drink. And look, this is kind of no different. The official fuel economy is under 13 litres per 100 Ks, but we're currently averaging just under 14, and this has been doing a fair bit of highway driving. So it is pretty thirsty there, and I would expect it to get even worse if you're doing predominantly city driving or you are towing with this as well. Now, we spoke about how good the ride is when the vehicle's sort of tootling around town. It's nice and soft. What is it like here on our sine waves when the speed picks up? It is very wet out there at the moment, so I need to be very gingy here with the throttle. But we do this at 130, gives us a good indication of what the ride is like. Yeah, that's excellent. So even though, there's a lot of wind noise actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, even though the ride is quite soft, it doesn't feel underdone, and it doesn't feel like you're getting that effect of a lack of body control. So it is really nice and smooth there. A lot of that will also come down to the fact that this has eKDSS, which is the latest version of KDSS, and that brings with it a different system. So the previous KDSS system was a singular hydraulic loop, which had its limitations, whereas this is an electronically controlled system on the front and rear axle. So it can independently disconnect the sway bar when you are sort of in an off-road situation to increase wheel articulation, and we'll test that to see how well it works. But let's whack her into sport mode. It is wet out there, but I just want to see how this feels in terms of suspension and ride and handling when the speed picks up. We test all our cars back to back in the same way. You know what, there is, despite it being wet, there is a surprising amount of traction from these tyres. Typically all-terrains, especially if you look at something like the Ranger Raptor, are hideously bad in the wet, whereas this is holding on pretty nicely. We filmed our sort of exterior overlay footage earlier in the day when it was a lot wetter. It has dried out slightly now, and this thing is absolutely hauling. That's the thing, the body has a degree of body roll there, but it actually holds itself in check really nicely. It reaches that outer limit, and you can feel that torsion bar working there to stop this thing from swaying too much. You're getting the benefits of it having that on-road comfort, and then hopefully we'll see the benefits of eKDSS off-road, where it can disconnect those sway bars and give us that degree of usability for wheel articulation. Tell you what, this is holding on really surprisingly. I'll give it a kick on the back here. Sounds like there's a little bit of artificial sound coming in, but holy moly, it is absolutely hauling. Wow, that is impressive. That pulls along very nicely. I was not expecting that, and handles nicely as well. For such a big vehicle, this feels totally different to an LX and a 300 series, despite them sitting on the exact same platform. Okay, I'm gonna whack this back to comfort. Now we've got our rough road here. We do this at 90 k's an hour to see what the ride is like. Yes, that's quite decent. You're getting the benefits there of that softer ride setup. So here's our condensed sine wave. Again, it's falling into all of those divots. Yeah, look, I'm really impressed with the ride here. I was expecting this to be nowhere near as nice as it is, especially given it was sort of tuned for the American market. I thought it'd be a bit sloppy, but this actually feels really great. Now let's talk about visibility. So one of the good things here is these giant mirrors on the vehicle. They kind of have Jeep Gladiator vibes to them, but I can clearly see down the front there. You've got the ridges of the bonnet that make it quite easy to see. And then visibility out the back is pretty good as well, especially given that this is only a 5-seater. Great camera too, your blind spot monitors, it's got sort of all of those bases covered. On the towing front as well, you've got a 3.5 tonne brake towing capacity, which I mentioned earlier, but you have just under 600 kilos of payload. So if you are putting 350 kilos on the back of this as around 10% of your trailer weight, you are eating into a lot of that payload. So that is just worth keeping in mind, that you will be somewhat limited in terms of what you can carry if you are towing at that maximum 3.5 tonne brake towing capacity. And the other thing worth pointing out as well, just as I sort of remember this stuff, they did mention at the launch that this would have an integrated wiring loom and brake controller. I can't see a brake controller anywhere here, so I don't know if that's maybe just for US market cars, but I can't see any sort of physical brake controller here that would come with the car if you did actually attach a tow bar to it. So worth checking with your Lexus dealer if you are planning on doing some towing. Okay, time to test our lane support system. So we do this at 70 k's an hour as the rain starts bucketing down. But I'm curious to see how this works. It doesn't have an EPAS system, so the electric steering assistance. It's still a hydraulic system. So yeah, I'll just be curious to see how well that all comes together. So we'll engage that at 70 k's an hour. And then once that is active, I should also mention as well, this driver monitoring system is really annoying. It just keeps beeping at you, buzzing, bonging, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, something to keep in mind, but you can switch it off, which is good. Okay, so one push of this engages the steering as well. So there it is there, holding us perfectly fine in this first lane. We'll jump over to the next lane and wait for that to go green. There's green. Really doing a pretty good job here as well. It's holding us pretty much dead center. Typically, as the amount of steering input torque you're required to have, it sort of gets worse for cars, but it seems to be working well there. So the hardest case scenario is this outer lane here where the highest banking is. The car's forced to apply a lot of steering torque. See how willing it is to do that. It's actually doing a pretty good job. So it's kind of straddling the line there, but this tells you that it is going to be quite confident out on the open road in terms of how much steering input it's willing to do before it gives up. So pretty impressive there. Okay, now the fun part. Time to do a little bit of performance testing. I'm going to slot this over to Sport Plus mode, Sport S Plus mode. I'll have to one day find out what the actual difference is between those modes. It is pretty wet out here at the moment, unfortunately, but we'll see how we're going to turn traction control off, just so we can dial up some revs. We're going to go all the way through to 120, so here we go. It gets off all right. Okay, there's 100 and 120. I'll come to a stop. Okie dokie. So let's have a look here. So 0 to 100, 6.83 seconds. Gee, that's not bad. It's bloody moving. 80 to 120, 4.46 seconds. So that's good as well. So while this is going to chew through some fuel, especially if you're towing, you are going to have some fairly confident towing there as well. So we'll actually try and get this car back and do some towing with it to see how it performs, but those numbers are great. It means you're never going to be wanting for more oomph when you do actually need it, so very impressed with that. Okay, time to do a stop from 100. It is sopping wet out there, so this won't be overly impressive, but it's just a good chance to see what these all-terrains are like and the brake and tyre package, how it works together. All right. Oh. Tell you what, we did hit a couple of the sort of standing wet patches there, but in between those, it actually was pulling up really nicely. These all-terrains are really good. Okay, so 100 to 0, 3.41 seconds, 46 meters. Now, I'm going to tell you that 46 meters is routinely what we get for something like an Everest in the dry, or near enough in the dry. So to think that this does 46 meters in the wet, I think is pretty impressive, especially on all-terrains. So yeah, quite impressed with that. Okay, so how fast does it go in reverse? Here we go. Okay, 33 kilometers an hour. And if you do want to see how this car compares to others that we've tested before in terms of those figures, there is a link in the description below. Okay, it is time to do a little bit of light off-roading. I apologise, today has just been a bit of a nightmare. It's been just raining on and off, and we've had to shoot this just completely botched. We had a TRX here today as well, but I sort of cancelled filming of that because we were going to run out of time. So one thing I forgot to mention before is that when this is in sport mode, I think it's at speeds of above 3 kilometres an hour, it actually runs in a fully locked up mode for the transmission, which means you're getting a far more direct throttle feel. You're not getting any of that sort of reduction. It is just 1-to-1 and it feels very punchy. So that is one of the things that they emphasised when they were doing the development work of this car. So just a little tidbit of information there. Now you have a little over 200 millimetres of ground clearance, which isn't too bad. This doesn't have height adjustable suspension, so you can't raise it or lower it to get any better or worse than that. But it does have that EKDSS system, which we'll demonstrate shortly. It's effectively designed to give you extra wheel articulation. The EKDSS over the previous generation of KDSS adds just under 100 mil of extra wheel articulation to give you just over 600 mil. Not quite as much as something like a Land Rover Defender that can go almost up to a full metre with its air suspension, but it is sort of still half decent. So we'll test to see how that works. And that's all automatic as well. You don't need to do anything. It's able to detect the terrain that you're on. And when you do actually select one of the drive modes for off-road driving, it will automatically disengage the sway bar to give you that extra articulation. But if you do just happen to stumble across an off-road course, it's able to take care of that all on its own. In terms of approach and departure angles, approach angle comes in at 26 degrees, which is the angle of the face you can approach before you hit the front of the car, and departure angle is 23 degrees for the standard car, but 21 degrees for the Overtrail, because it's got the bigger, chunkier all-terrain tyre as a spare beneath the rear of the vehicle. And then because of those tyre changes as well, it's getting an extra 5 mil of ground clearance. Weighting depth, 700 mil. You have a rear diff lock on the Overtrail and a Torsen limited slip differential in the centre for the rest of the variants. Then you have a number of drive modes here for us to play with as well, including a tow mode. So what we're going to do first is, given this is a full-time four-wheel drive, we're going to head over our Mogul. Normally we would lock this into two-wheel drive to see how well the traction control system works, but I'm just going to leave this in four-wheel drive high range, which is the only setting we have here, and we'll just see what articulation looks like on that rear wheel once it leaves the ground. So I'll just get it into that position just there. That is a huge amount of lift. I'm just going to roll back and forward there so you can see what that looks like. But typically when we're off-road here in a vehicle, we're not getting to the point where that wheel is actually touching the ground. So the fact that that wheel is touching the ground tells you that there's enough wheel articulation to drop it into that rut, which ultimately gives you more traction. So let's see what happens here. I'm just going to roll onto the throttle. So we're getting a little bit of slip there, but it's actually not moving. Traction control is just intervening and killing all of our fun. So I'm going to just have a look at one of these off-road modes and just see whether we can actually get something better there. If I go to, just leave it in auto and see how well that works. So I'm going to roll onto the throttle now, and we'll see if that will tailor the traction control to better get us across here. Doesn't seem to be doing much there at all. It's really surprising. I would have thought with something like this it would be very keen to start playing with traction controls. I'll try flick it over to mud mode, which is what we're in now. Oh, that's much better. Look at that. So immediately there, it is spinning up that wheel, but I can hear the traction control system braking really quickly. And in mud mode, the throttle is much sharper as well. It is really sharp. So there you go, that's fascinating. So I would have thought in auto mode it would have detected that something was going on there and it would have fixed that, but all it took was flicking over to mud mode, and you can see right there that a good traction control system fixes all your problems virtually straight away. So that's pretty good. Okay, so we're going to head back over our Mogul in the opposite direction now, and we'll see how this performs. Now this time around we're going to go in the opposite direction. I'm going to lock the center differential. That way, basically we're sending 50% of torque to the front axle and 50% of torque to the rear. And we'll just see how well that performs once we have tires with no traction. So drop that into there, get this one onto there. And I'm just gonna roll onto the throttle now. That front left has limited traction, but center diff is locked. Yeah, that crawls over there without any dramas at all. So that is quite impressive. All right, let's head over to our hill and we'll give that a crack. Okay, time to give our hill a crack. So it has been raining. This is a little bit muddy. Got the all-terrain, so let's see what happens. So we do this one in low range. So I'm gonna flick this down to L4. Flick that into neutral so that it can engage low range. Normally we do this with rear diff locked as well, so one click of that. That's interesting, it's not working. So I wonder if you have to engage that with the center diff locked. It's just doing a whole bunch of flashing down there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's not really doing anything. So there's, okay, so looks like to lock the rear diff, you've got to have the center diff locked as well, which makes sense. We still have the drive mode in mud, so we'll just leave that there. All right, let's give this a shot. Let's see what happens. This also has crawl control, which we'll try again once we come back. But this is basically constant throttle on the way up now, and then I'll come back and try from a standing start as well. Losing a little bit of traction there, but it is climbing up. Very impressive. So being a petrol, it is quite sharp on the throttle, so it is just about modulating throttle, because you don't want to get into a situation where you just get heaps of flare up and things get out of control. Got a little bath just here. Through that. Now this camera's great. So you've got a forward-facing camera with tyre directions. I can see over the front tyres as well. Very high quality. I've got angles here. This is a sensational system for off-roading. So they've done a really good job with that. Now what I'm going to do is engage crawl controls. So there's one push of that button. What this does is, using your mode selector, you can actually adjust the speed of your descent. So I'm going to set that to halfway. We'll line up our tyres across the edge here, and then it will basically control our descent over the edge here. Very nice. Toyota has perfected this system. Like they are on top of it in terms of its operation. It is an absolute sort of piece of cake there. So very, very impressed with that. Okay, let's go back to our hill. I want to try crawl control on the hill as well. Okay, take two. Let's try crawl control here and just see how well that actually works with this sort of terrain. We'll switch that on. I'll go to like the third speed setting there. And this is basically going to manage the throttle, traction controls, everything on its own here. So we'll see how well that works. I've had mixed success with this stuff in the past, but we'll see what it does. Come on, we're almost there. No, I think it's had enough of that, and I don't want to dig too much of a hole there, so we'll come out of that. That's a shame. We were so close. I might actually just try going slightly faster with the crawl control there, and just see if it's a speed thing potentially. So we'll crank that all the way up. Let's give that one more shot. See how it goes, because it was really close. It almost had us there. Okay, here we go. Maybe just a bit more momentum will do it. Go, 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 go. Yes, 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 yes. Boom, nice, excellent. There you go. So these systems do have some purpose, which is good. I like that actually worked. All right, so switch that off and let's head over and have a look at our rocks. Okay, actually, before we do the rocks, some of you are going to complain that I haven't tested the car the same way that we test all the other cars. So I'm going to do my traditional come up, stop, take off test. So I'll bring this up to around here somewhere. Hard on the brakes. The tyres are caked in mud, unfortunately. So I'll let off the brakes just to see if it has hill hold, and then I'm going to take off again. We'll see how it goes. So here we go. Nice, nice, nice. This thing is unreal. This is seriously good. Okay, let's head over to the rocks now. Okay, so rocks, I'm going to flick this over to rock mode. I've left the rear diff locked so I can just have a bit more control over how it all works. I'm going to ride the brake with the throttle as well. So the throttle immediately is far less sensitive than it was in mud mode. And I don't know if they've done anything to the suspension in rock mode as well, but it feels much softer too. So it means that you're able to just cruise over this without sort of any dramas at all. We are getting a little bit of touch down there, but not the end of the world. This is very comfortable over this as well, so nice. Very good. Okay, so look, Lexus GX. This is a car that has massive history in the States with people that love going off-road. Pretty much everyone that owns one modifies it. So you can just see these wild-looking GXs in the States that have stacks of modifications. I can see now why this has been built like it is here in Overtrail trim for off-road focused performance. They have knocked it out of the park, genuinely. With all of this stuff that you have here to access your off-road modes, it is idiot-proof. Like, I'm not a seasoned off-roader, but I can just access all of these controls very easily and know that it's going to get me to where I need to go. So from an off-road point of view, this is fantastic. I am a little concerned about the size of the fuel tank though. We're down to a quarter of a tank here. 80 litre tank. It's not exactly enormous. It's not the world's smallest tank, but for a turbocharged petrol V6, you're going to find that if you are off-roading and doing a bit of adventuring, it is going to get through fuel pretty quickly. So that is something worth keeping in mind. Hopefully someone comes up with an aftermarket tank solution for this. It may mean losing the spare wheel under the vehicle, but yeah, I think that could be a concern if you are going deep into the bush. Ultimately, it is going to be limited up a little bit there by the fuel tank capacity. Outside of that though, interior is fantastic. I think the price is really reasonable. This feels high-end and luxury. I would buy one in a heartbeat. I think they have absolutely nailed this. So let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel as well. Let us know if there's any other tests you want us to do with the GX as well. I'm keen for your feedback. But until next time, take it easy.